Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Inept General, and welcome to my Norsca Campaign preview. Now, a few days ago, we got a preview of the Norsca Campaign through the eyes of Throgg, the king of the trolls. So let's kick things off and see what we learned. So the first thing I wanted to pull was this diplomacy shot. Now, nothing has changed diplomacy-wise, but it kind of gave us an idea. Now, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'm going to go on an assumption that these two positions of Wulfric and Throgg are going to be the starting positions of their campaign. Now, at one point during the video, they mentioned that Throgg had lost Erengrad, but I don't think that's going to be his starting position. I think he's actually going to start up there in Norsca. I think that's his capital, and I think Wulfric's going to start down here in the Sea of Claws. So I may be wrong on this, but I'm going to take this as rote, as these are their starting positions. We'll find out soon enough, but I think this is where they're going to be. So bear that in mind when you select which general you want to start out your Norsca campaign with. One other thing worth mentioning about diplomacy is that during the Norscan campaign, Norscan kind of taking over or confederating has actually changed. The idea being that if you beat a Norscan faction leader in combat, in a battle, that they will be forced to they're so disgraced by their loss that they're forced to subjugate themselves to you. So if you beat the Norscan faction leader, and I think it has to be the faction leader here, not just some general, you beat the faction leader, the next diplomacy turn you have, you're not only able to make peace, but you're also able to make them join your confederation, which makes it a lot easier to get the legendary lords quickly. You just have to beat Wulfric in one battle early on, and if you're playing as Throgg, and then you can confederate with him, then you have Wulfric early doors, which I suppose is a kind of compromise to being able to conquer and join confederations. I suppose that's a good way of doing it. And I hope it's something they carry forward to the other races as well, to a certain extent, that if you conquer a people and they have a legendary lord, you can then confederate with them as well. But we'll have to wait and see if they move that over to any other factions. But for Norsca, it's something that's in place that you can take advantage of. So moving on from the starting positions, let's have a quick look at this little image we were given about Wulfric. Now, Wulfric, we haven't been given a lot of campaign details on. We haven't seen his upgrade tree yet. So let's just have a look at some of the stuff they've hinted at on the Total War Warhammer Facebook page. So Wulfric can embark on a quest for the mighty sword Thorgald, increasing his melee attack and imbuing him with the ability to further increase his massive amounts of weapon damage. Okay, weapon strength buff, melee attack as well. Okay, Wulfric's cursed, World Walker. Wulfric's cursed to forever walk the world, to best and kill the world's champions, always lying in wait. He has a higher chance to ambush and intercept enemies when they least expect it. Now this I'm a little bit disappointed about, because in the lore, guys, Wulfric, if you haven't seen my Wulfric lore video, check it out in the top right hand corner, or there'll be a link in the description below. But Wulfric, through his adventures, gains a boat known as Seafang. Now, we've seen Seafang, we haven't seen it, but we've been told Seafang is a battle ability for Wulfric, but it looks like they're not going to make it a campaign ability. Now, the reason it would make a very interesting campaign ability is that Seafang has the power, essentially, to teleport anywhere in the Warhammer world. Now, this teleportation comes at a cost of blood, but he does have the ability to teleport. So I did hope we were going to see a mechanic whereby Wulfric can teleport, but his troops take a certain amount of attrition every time he does so, and he can't attack perhaps the same turn he teleports. That's what I thought the system was going to be. But it looks like that's not the case, and he just gets a higher ambush chance. Not particularly happy about that. I think that's a bit too soft. You could have found some middle ground there for people who say that the teleportation thing would be pretty OP. Fervent creatures. With hordes of gruesome monsters under Wulfric's command, control is important. The fervent skin wolves of his armies have been drilled to charge hard and take a hit. I think that's essentially Skinwolf upgrades for Wulfric. Juggernaut of the Saal. Norscans are known for their ability to rear feral beasts into war machines. Wulfric Beastmasters can make a mammoth hit harder. Mammoth bonuses. We kind of knew some of this already. Fearsome Warrior. Wulfric has trained his men to lust for blood. The crazed berserkers under his command are more skilled with their axes and can cut much deeper. Berserker buffs. The mighty skin wolf devours the flesh. The mighty skin wolf work in Wulfric's army employed are fed frequently with scraps from the mangled gore of battle and are both numerous and skilled in combat. I think they've spoken about it. So I think this is a buff to skin wolf heroes and their experience and sort of their rank when you first recruit them. So I just wanted to cover a little bit of what little we know of what Wulfric's campaign might look like. So getting back to Throgg over here, this is his seemingly starting sort of faction ability. Plus 10 physical resistance for trolls in his army, and all units in Throgg's army are immune to all attrition. That's a fantastic one, particularly if you're going down, trying to batter the greenskins, trying to batter the dwarves. That one will come very much in handy. Upkeep minus 15% for all trolls. Fantastic. I can't wait to have my full-on troll army smash across the old world with this guy. So that's his kind of faction abilities. Let's go and look at some of the campaign mechanics that were revealed to us about the Norscan campaign. First off, we have the idea of pleasuring the four gods. So we have the hound, the crow, the eagle, and the serpent. The hound is Khorne, I believe. The crow is Nurgle. The eagle is Tzeentch, and the serpent is Slaanesh. Just for those of you who want like a direct translation to the Chaos Gods, because that's essentially who these are. The Norscans maybe know them slightly differently. But the idea here is that you can take over a town, you can occupy it, and if you don't want to occupy it, you can just raise it and put up a totem to your chosen god. Now, the campaign has been explained to us through the Steam page and stuff like that your Norscan campaign effectively ends when you have the full, like the maximum sort of favor of one of these gods, and then you get given a final mission, and then you do that, and then that's the end of the Norscan campaign. Now, it will take you a little while to get there, I think, because let's have a look here. If we go across to the ends of these things, we can see a little element of how much favor we need to get to the end of total favor of one of the gods, and that seems to be about 100. Now, at the moment, it seems that around turn, I think it was 30-ish, that this preview was taking place. He's already almost halfway there. So they could potentially be, if you just concentrate on one god, it could potentially be a pretty short campaign for the Norscans. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that's what it seems like it might be to get up to that 100 favor for the level 3 Champion of Crows. But so Crows, each one, the maximum favor gains you a kind of faction bonus. Now in this one, if you get maximum favor, a devastating plague will be unleashed across the world, your faction being immune, wound recovery time goes down, casualty replenishment rate goes up. And that's kind of in line with Nurgle. Nurgle's attributes tend to favor sort of toughness and stuff like that. So that's what the Crow Championship gets you. The Championship of the Eagle is a mighty Lord of Change. Azric the Maze Keeper will be unlocked to fight for your faction, available from your Lord recruitment pool. So essentially another legendary Lord. Now, I'm going to mention this a little bit later, but the Lord of Change is not a huge leap. We've kind of seen the model before in Total War Warhammer 1. We've had the Lord of Change. I imagine it'll just maybe be a recoloration of that Lord, but we'll have to wait and see what that looks like. Plus research 20%, plus magic, great stuff. And then of the Serpent, a specialist chaos sorcerer. Now that sounds interesting. It might be a sorcerer with multiple lords of magic. That has to be what I imagine they're going to give you. I don't think they're going to give you a specific new lore of magic. I just don't see that happening with this DLC. So I think they are going to most likely give you a multiple lore sorcerer. So a powerful sorcerer lord, and that's about it. Now, Lord Recruitment rank plus 5, pretty handy, minus 10% upkeep for all units. Again, pretty handy. And then the last one that tweaked my attention, Blurred Out. So, what could this possibly be? Now, what's the other things that we get for the Champion of the Hound is 100 experience for all forces, and weapon strength plus 10% for melee infantry units. Now, the Hound is Khorne. Now, bearing in mind, we had a Lord of Change, which is essentially a greater demon for one of the options. The other one had a sorcerer, special sorcerer. Now, why would they blur this out? If it was just another kind of wizard, I don't think this would be blurred. Now, I don't want to prep everyone for disappointment here, but I would be very skeptical. My first guess would be a Bloodthirster, which is a special greater demon of Khorne, for those of you who don't know. And they are just massively fierce, kind of very typically demon-looking monsters of carnage. But this blurring out makes me suspicious, because we haven't seen them in the game yet. So that means that they made a new model for this one particular bonus of this one particular character. And that just seems unlikely. I'm going to put on my wishing hat now and be like, oh, I really hope it is a Bloodthirster. On the other hand, I'm going to put on my doubly strong wishing hat and go, it could be Valkyr the Bloody. Now, Valkyr the Bloody is a legendary lord. I didn't expect to see her until the third game as a legendary lord for the demon armies of Khorne. If you'd like to know the lore of Valkyr the Bloody and what exactly her deal is and her story, do check my Missing Legendary Lords Chaos video popping up in the top right hand corner now, or you'll find a link to the video in the description below. It's quite a fun story of hers, so do check it out if you get a chance. But if she makes an appearance, I would be amazed. Just absolutely amazed. But that's, I think, what the most optimistic of us are hoping it is. But realistically, I can't see them having made Valkyr the Bloody as a simple bonus at the end of an upgrade tree. I just don't see it happening. I'm not sure what it is. It might be a Bloodthirster, but I also don't see that happening. I have no idea, guys. I'll be honest. It would be cool. It would be amazing to see Valkyr the Bloody, but I just don't think that is what we are going to get. But you know what? It's always fun to wish. But apart from that, let's have a look at how this actual favor thing stacks up. So for each one of these city things going up, we have a kind of look at each one will give you +6 to one and then -2 to the others. Now, theoretically, you can't have all of these. You'd never go anywhere if you try to gain favor with all of the gods. You can very slowly gain favor with several of them by just sort of rotating which ones you laid a totem down to over and over again. Now, that would take you a pretty long time. You'd probably have to conquer a lot of the old world in Warhammer to get there. Because I think after 3 rounds, you'd be 2 up on everyone, and then to do that, you'd have to do that 50 times. So that would be very tricky to get. I don't think that's actually possible. I don't think there are that many cities in the game. Maybe you could get the favor of 2 of them if you really pressed it, but we'll have to wait and see. So that is how this favors and how that bounces out. You obviously can't get them all. Maybe you do 2 playthroughs of Norsca where you get the favor of 2 of the gods and then you get the favor of the other 2 next time round. But that seems to be the main crux of it. So, as I said, that will get you to your end game in the Norsca Campaign. Now, let's have a look at this Monster Hunter mechanic we've been told about before. So, the idea is that Monster Hunter, it looks like, is a technology you have to research. So, you have to research it first, and then you are given access to the Monstrous Arcanum. Now, the Monstrous Arcanum seems to be certain challenges that give you, it looks like the ones we've seen so far, mainly items. So we don't know what these battles look like yet, whether you are just fighting one enemy or it's like 7 of them or 8 of each enemy, and then you get one of the things at the end. I imagine it'll be a few of these units that you have to fight with one special one that you have to kill. So we have the Scion of the Cold Void, which is a Frostworm. We have the Cygors, and then we go on to the next page, and we have the Dragon Ogres, and you get bonuses and magical items there. They all look like kind of unique or very powerful items in the purple shade there. And then the next one is probably an Arachnarok Spider, but you have to upgrade the technology before you can get the next characters. Ragnarok Spider, a Giant, a forest dragon. And then on the last page is the last technology you have to research, and that looks like you'll have to take down a special mammoth and a special terrorgeist to finish things off. Now, it looks like that's maybe all there is to it. There's just those 2, 4, 6, 8 challenges, and you get them, and you get 8 particular items. But there might be more later on. I don't think so. I think that's about it. So there we go, guys. That's what the Monstrous Arcane thing. It looks like items. They did hint that you'd maybe get units, but it doesn't look like that's the case so far. Maybe with the mammoth, you might get a special mammoth because that's actually in the Norscan army. If you got a weird special one-off terrorgeist, that would be a bit weird. But that's about it. So next, let's have a look at the stances for Norsca, and for the most part, these are very similar to the stances we've seen before, except that the Norscans, I believe, are the only human faction with a stance of raiding camp. I think we've only seen that with greenskins before, and that's where you get essentially the bonuses of encampment and raiding in one. So you can replenish, your guys get a defensive bonus and a leadership bonus, they become immune to attrition, but they're also able to raid for gold if there's a sort of a city functioning there. It's just at this spot there isn't a city, and it causes massive public order penalties, and oh wow, it actually just stops all money income from that region that you're raiding, which is interesting. Oh no, when you're raiding your own region. So don't raid your own region, guys. If you're going to encamp, make sure you encamp in enemy territory. So that's that stance. The next stance is just raiding, which is just normal raiding, and we've seen ambush before, and that's about it. The rest was march, and we've seen that. So let's move on to the technology tree. Now here we have the technology tree, and it looks like, as you can see, there is kind of the arc for the Monster Hunter stuff, but that's kind of its separate tree. Now the Chaos Surge, Bromfuel Hunger, we're not sure exactly what those are, but we know Monster Hunter opens up the Monstrous Arcanum. One of Beasts gives you the other challenges, and Master of Beasts gives you the other ones on top of that. But if we look at this bottom kind of tree here, it looks like these are working up to longer hulls and stronger ores. I imagine just makes you moving quicker across the seas, one has to imagine. And then we have the stuff at the end. So let's have a look at the particular race bonuses. So we start here with the Ruination of the Vampire counts, and we can see that there's one for every race. So +5 melee defense, -25 attrition to vampiric corruption, double experience gain for fighting vampire counts. Up for the Empire, +5 melee attack, aura size +50, upkeep -10. Oh, that's just for all units. That's actually a very handy one. At any point. Did vampire counts or anything like that? No, just for vampire. All the rest was vampire counts. Empire seems like a general one to get because that's pretty handy. The dwarves, vigor loss reduction for cavalry units. That's pretty handy as well. Leadership +10 during subterranean intercept battles. Weapon strength +10 when fighting against all dwarves. Very handy. Tilia. And now, if you're Norsca and you're making your way all the way around to Tilia, I mean, good for you, because I suppose you're wanting to raid and take over those port cities. But here we go. Missile resistance +10, leadership +5, income from post-battle loot +10. That's a great one to get, faction-wise. And Bretonnia, double experience against Bretonnia, +5 leadership when fighting against Bretonnia, bonus versus large when fighting against Bretonnia. So less generalistic, more very specific to Bretonnia. Now over here, we got a glimpse of how powerful these ones at the end can be in terms of far reaches. So Secrets of Gork and Mork, Winds of Magic Power Reserve, +20, immunity to all attrition, income from post-battle loot, +50%. If the rest of them are this strong, those end sort of technology trees look like they might be amazing. But interestingly, look at what they need. They need you to take over the faction capitals in order to do that. Now, I might mention this a little bit later, but effectively, guys, what you can take over is port cities and provincial capitals. Now, I'm not sure if it's provincial capitals or faction capitals. It's one of those two. I want to say they said faction capitals, And those are the only cities you can take over. The rest you can just like burn or build a totem, I think, is my understanding of the campaign for Norsca so far. But I look forward to seeing how powerful these other ones can be. Bear in mind how far away you'd have to go to get this bonus. So you really have to kind of think about your paths and the path of destruction you are laying throughout the old world. Now, Marauders of the West is a +1 public order, increased sacking, income 50% from Bretonnian, Southern Kingdoms, and Dwarf settlements. That's interesting. And then the East from Empire, Vampire Counts, and Greenskin. So again, just splitting where you get the bonuses, really making you think about where you're wanting to spend your time raiding and sacking and pillaging, rather than just going everywhere kind of nonchalantly to really maximize the benefits the technology can get you. Then we move over to the Champions of War, which was that one before the Marauders of the West and Marauders of the East, +2 experience for all Marauder units recruited, income from post-battle loot +10%. So a lot of boost to post-battle loot, to sacking loot, to raiding loot, as you get very much an idea of how the economy of Norsca will have to function. Now, Metalworker's Anvil, +5 armor, Blade Worker's Hammer, +10 weapon strength, and then the Axemaker's Stone, ammunition +10% for all Marauders, missile units, missile damage 15%. So really just helping out all your Marauders there early doors. And that's about all the upgrade tree stuff we were able to see. So let's move on to Throgg's upgrade tree himself. Now, we've seen a couple of things highlighted here, and that's the Icy Wrath, which is the 5+ melee attack for the Troll, so Troll boosting their melee attack, level 2 +10, level 3 +20 leadership for Norscan Trolls and Ice Troll unit. Now, that's huge. If you start to make Trolls not run away repeatedly, that is a huge benefit, and would be very much one of the things you should prioritize, particularly if you're building a troll-themed army, as you should be around this legendary lord. And then +15 melee attack for trolls in that army. Next up, we had a look at Frostbitten. Again, bonuses for trolls. +5 melee defense, +10 melee defense, +20 missile resistance, and 15 melee defense. Huge. Now, if we're going to guess at some of the other things in this chain, we have Cyclopean Friends. That has to be bonuses to the Famir defenses, it looks like. And Primordial Masters, I'm not sure what that would be. If we're looking at Primordial stuff, maybe the Mammoth bonuses to defense? I'm not sure. That's just a pure guess. Don't know what Primordial Masters would get you. But moving on to some of the stuff we were shown, we did get a glimpse of Fight or Die, +16 leadership, +27 melee attack, affects allies in range of the general, which is at the end of that chain. And then we are moving up to the top here, and we have Copious Vomit. Now, it looks like this is a project, like not just a breath weapon in close range. It looks like it has a bit of distance on it. So really going for it with the simple description. Hope no one was eating while they're listening to this guy. Sorry about that. Couldn't resist. And it causes magical damage and fire damage and an explosive at the end of it. So really a potentially devastating weapon there from Throgg, the king of the trolls. Now, up the top here, we also have Mutant Regeneration, Casualty Replenishment Rate +25% for all Norscan Trolls and Famir Warriors. So huge bonuses to casualty replenishments after battle. And King of Trolls, -10% upkeep, +2 public order for Trolls and Famir Warriors. So it really looks like they're really pushing you towards a certain type of upgrade here. Now, there's more casualty replenishment down on the bottom with Swelling of Doom. I think we'll have a look at that in just a moment. Yeah, here we go, Swelling of Doom. Oh, that's Provincial Growth more than anything. Okay, interesting. So Provincial Growth. And then we have Masters of the Fen, which is +5 for Bale Fiends and +1 hero capacity for Famir Bale Fiends. So that will be pretty handy. Now, a lot of the stuff in the top row we've seen before. Aura of Chaos will probably be a -10% missile resistance. Lightning Strike we've seen. Savage Skills will be ongoing experience. Unnatural Healing will be an interesting one to see, just see how strong that is. But for most of these, we can probably have a bit of a guess. Hardened Hunters, bonus to melee, bonus to missile attack. Leadership bonus, Fearsome Warriors, Champions of the North. One has to assume a melee defense buff for, I'm guessing, Marauders at that point. So let's have a look. There's only one type of generic general for the Norskans, and there are different ways to build them out. So if we have a look over here, we have let's have a look at what we're starting with, okay? So Indulger of the Exotic. Now, these, very much like the cities we spoke about before, are split into the 4 upgrades for the Chaos Lords. And if you pick one, it looks like you're actually locked out of the others, which makes it kind of interesting that you almost have to build a general more towards the sort of leadership stuff, the army benefit stuff, and the campaign benefit stuff. And there's not a lot of points you can pour into combat. You just have to kind of pick-ish what you want, and then just stick with that. There's not a lot of points you can pour into it, which is interesting for the Marauder Chieftain. So this gets you +3 hit points, and then it gets you, at the very end of that upgrade tree, the Seduction of the Serpent. Passive ability makes you immune to psychology, +10 leadership, +27 melee defense, is an augment on yourself, and you're imbued with discouraged 16% leadership for your enemies, I'm guessing. So that's what Seduction of the Serpent does. Next up, we have the Spirit Wanderer. Now this is the Eagle upgrade tree, one have to assume. And that's +3 speed, and then at the end of that upgrade tree, you just get a fireball. Mage or not, you just get to be able to use a fireball, which I think is pretty interesting, actually. Using a fireball from on top of a mammoth might be pretty cool. And that causes magical and fire damage, powerful explosion, effective at long range, 300-meter range. So yeah, you just get the bounce spell fireball, which is pretty good. And then Noxious Vessel, +3 missile resistance. One imagines that just makes you kind of tougher as it goes along the tree. And then at the end of that tree, poison attacks and regeneration. But with regeneration, you have that weakness to fire. But that could be cool, just making you a much hardier general there. And then the last one is the Hound, which is armor, piercing damage. This is all going to be damage, charge bonus, and then Berserk, which is a bonus that Berserkers get, but you can give it to your general here as well, which is the idea that we've seen in the combat video I've done previously, the battle video, which you haven't seen. Check out the top right-hand corner now, or the description below. That just makes you a better fighter, physical resistance, melee attack, the longer your general's in combat. So if they can hold on for 66 seconds, they will be in a much better position than they would have been previously. And then Eye of the Gods, just 7% weapon strength, and that's about it for your general. Now let's have a look at the heroes and some of their skills. Now, we've seen a bit of the Famir Balefiends before, but they weren't covered in this video. In this one, we have the Shaman, and they can just damage buildings when the Shaman's going into a city, just to give you an idea of their skills. And here's the Shaman, just looks like one Law of Magic. If I remember correctly, they had Metal and Shadow, or something along those lines. Do check out my stats and army video, again, down in the description below, for a full look at what the Shaman can do. But yeah, just like a typical mage upgrade tree, Twisted Architecture, one has to imagine, is that construction bonus, less cost for construction. Zapped is an assassination thing. There's nothing we really haven't seen in this upgrade tree before. You can see they can have a Warhorse or a Marauder Chariot, which could be particularly handy. And that's about it, really. And now let's look at the Skin Wolves. Now, they can assault units or they can assassinate. And they have an interesting upgrade tree. It's kind of a... It's strange. It's just kind of a melee... It's most comparable to a melee lords, a melee heroes upgrade tree that we've seen in the game previously, with stuff like Champion there, Feral Beginning, which I have to assume is an experience buff or for recruits, and then you maybe have another one further down that line, which I don't think we got to see, that will be an experience buff for ongoing in your armies, like training them. Now, with these guys, it looks like you have to kind of pick between whether you want your army to be defensive or offensive, and you're locked out of the other option if you pick one or the other. So you can sort of go for armor bonuses, or you can go for attack bonuses. Now, we have a look at the armor bonuses here. +6 armor at level 1, I think that is. I assume that will get better to about +30, I assume, by level 3, or +15 maybe. We'll have to wait and see. And then Ruinous Flesh, plus 18, plus 11 missile resistance. So just making you a hardier army. Or not even a hardier army, a hardier character. Sorry, don't know what I'm talking about there. Hardier character. Or you are a more attacking character with plus 8 melee defense and then plus 16 melee attack and plus 36 charge bonus with passive build, which is that Frenzied Assault thing. So it's quite interesting the way they make you choose there. But then again, you get all those... But then again, you get all these upgrades here at the top to make you a better fighter anyway. So, I don't know. It's a bit of give and take. It's just nice to have that extra bonus, I suppose. Now let's move on to the building chain in Norsca. So this is the full building chain, I think, in one of their larger cities. We've got a couple of things going on here. We've got the first dash, which is money generating, plus 2 income from raiding faction-wide. Just makes your raiding better. Beast Tanner, and then Slaver's Camp. All of you just sort of bringing in money for your city. Other buildings we have is the loot pile, which is plus 10 growth, plus 3 research rate, which is pretty good. And that can go up to the plundering hall, which is plus 30 growth, plus 7 research rate, and minus 1 upkeep for all forces. So again, a pretty useful building to have there. Other buildings we've seen is an obsidian quarry, which is a new resource in the game, which we haven't seen so far. Construction costs are minus 5% for all buildings. Get yourself a bit of dragon glass, why not? Although technically, I suppose you're the wildlings. Yeah, wildlings with some dragon glass. Yeah, go for it. And then we have the port. So it goes from like port to like longship builder, stuff like that. So income, growth, casualty replenishment from ports as well, which is very handy. Ruinous Stables, where you get your Marauder Horseman, the Ice Wolf Chariot at level 3, it looks like. And we have Chaos Totem, which is Feral Mammoth, where your mammoths seem to come from. Now, I'm not sure so it looks like you get the mammoths and you get the Chaos War Shrine at the next upgrade, and then you get the Norscan Giant at that upgrade as well for the level 2 Chaos Totem there. Then the Ruinous Altar, again, public order, again, so a lot of growth buildings going on, so you can really build up cities fairly quickly if you set your mind to it. So Ruinous Altar, and the special building at Erengrad for Throgg in particular is the Cave of the Rocky Throne, which is minus 20% recruitment for all Norscan trolls, Norscan ice trolls, and Famir warriors, which is pretty big with all the bonuses, and plus 3 experience for them out of the gate when you recruit them. So that's a huge buff. You probably want to get that quite early before you build up your entire army of trolls and Famir warriors and Bale Fiends in that context. Let's move on to a couple of unit stats which we weren't given in the earlier battle views. The first one is just regular Marauders. Now, without the campaign buffs, these guys are unchanged from the game so far. Next up, we had the Marauder Javelins, which we compare to the Marauder Hunters, which we saw before, but these guys are anti-large rather than armor-piercing, so you might want a combination of these two. They have the same sort of health, they have the same number in the units. Now let's have a look at range. The axes, funnily enough, have a longer range. I wouldn't have thought so. I'd have thought it's much easier to throw a javelin further than it is an axe. But what the hell do I know? I'm no Norscan warrior. But the missile damage is higher on the javelins, so they're good for unarmored foes as well, one would have to assume, and just taking them down. And their ammunition is much more on the javelins as well. So more range. Oh no, what am I talking about? Sorry, I was reading the wrong statistic there. Yeah, range on the javelins is much further than range on the axe throwers, 90 to 65. Ammunition, 16 to 8 for the javelin throwers, and damage is much higher for the javelin throwers as well. The axe Marauder Hunters, really, you just kind of want to go against armored units. That's all you're really wanting to hold them for. Now, if you look at that range, that's further range than the Skink Skirmishers we'll get in Total War Warhammer 2. And further range than the Dwarven Rangers with great weapons as well. So they can outrange a couple of things there, and they have better weapon strength. They're just a better unit, it looks like, than the Marauder Hunters, but the Marauder Hunters are more of a utility unit when you're going up against Chaos or the Dwarves or stuff like that. So that seems to be the prime difference between the two there. Norscan Warhounds. Now let's compare these to some dire wolves. I should probably have compared them to some Chaos Hounds as well, but this is what I picked, so let's stick with this. Now, the Norscan Ice Wolves, much less of them. They have about half the number as the Norscan Warhounds. They have the same amount of health, the same amount of armor as the Warhounds, better leadership, same speed, better melee attack, frostbite, so they will slow units down when they're fighting them as well. So that makes them better at perhaps hunting down missile cav, stuff like that, than necessarily the Norscan Warhounds, because Norscan Warhounds can't slow down a unit once they've hit them. And then you have melee defense is much higher, weapon strength is almost twice that of the Norscan Warhounds, and charge bonus is more than twice that of the Norscan Warhounds. So essentially a much better unit than the Warhounds, but there are less of them, but they are the same speed and stuff, so they can be used for kind of the same stuff, just the Ice Wolves are better, and they look a bit more attractive too, I imagine, as well. Now you compare that to something like the Dire Wolves of the Vampire counts, and they match the Norscan Warhounds in terms of unit size. There's less health, less armor, less leadership, less speed, less melee attack, more melee defense for the Dire Wolves, I'll give them that, and about the same weapon strength and about the same charge bonus. So the Norscan Warhounds are better than Dire Wolves at being able to hunt stuff down. They don't have Vanguard though, and they do not cause fear, interestingly enough. That is interesting. They do have missile resistance though. So maybe Norscan stuff is just better at hunting down missile cav, and Dire Wolves may be handy at hunting down missile infantry because they cause fear, they cause them to break, all sorts of fun stuff there. But that's how the Wolves and the Hounds compare. Now let's have a look at the Trolls. Now the only new Troll here is the one on the far left, the Norscan Troll. We had a look at the Norscan Ice Troll stats before, and it's just effectively an interesting compromise. Now, the thing on the left you have to bear in mind is that the Norscan Ice Troll has experience points and is buffed up through campaign bonuses of Throgg. So don't take these as set. And it looks like there's such a huge bonus to melee attack that it probably will settle back down around the 40 mark when it's a normal Norscan Troll. Their speed's 54, same as all the other Trolls. Leadership 41, I think that's a little buff. I think that will be the same as the other Trolls. Armor, same as the other Trolls. Melee defense is 22. I mean, it looks like that's getting debuffed in this screen for some reason, so it looks like that's probably about the same as the rest of Trolls. 86 for weapon strength, same as most of the other Trolls, and 30 charge bonus, same as most. So Norscan Trolls, effectively just like any other Trolls in the game, regular Trolls. Norscan Ice Trolls are a bit of a step above, slightly different than a step above of the Chaos Armored Trolls. So that's about that. Now, the Feral Mammoth. Let's compare it to the War Mammoth and the Dragon Ogre Shaggoth, just as points of comparison. Again, huge amounts of health, 12,207 health. That is less than the War Mammoth, of course, because the War Mammoth is an upgrade, and that is, of course, more than the Dragon Ogre Shaggoth. Armor 30 compared to the 70 of the War Mammoth. Leadership 56. Both things worse than the Shaggoth, but the Shaggoth costs as much as the War Mammoth, don't forget. Melee attack 56, melee attack 25 for the Feral Mammoth compared to the 30 for the War Mammoth. Defense 30, melee defense 40 for the War Mammoth. 525. They have the same weapon strength, so the Feral Mammoth can still hit hard. It'll hit less often, but it can still pack one heck of a wallop. And then charge bonus 80. Again, a huge charge bonus there, much larger than that of the Dragon Ogre Shaggoth. And I threw in Vargulf here as well. Sorry about that, missed that one off. But you compare that to the Vargulf. Again, huge, way more health than the Vargulf. Leadership more, speed less, melee attack way less, melee defense less, weapon strength more than double what the Vargulf has. So a Feral Mammoth will still take down a Vargulf, which I suppose is a relatively comparable monster. And that about sums it up for this campaign preview. I'm really looking forward to it, getting the mammoths out, getting the Famir out, getting the werewolves out. It looks like it will be one hell of a fun DLC, guys, and I hope you'll join me on my Norsca campaign, which will be starting as of the release, I guess, because I'm just about finishing up my Von Karstein campaign, so we'll hopefully move on to that. Now, a special thank you to all my patrons, as usual, guys. Hooley, Reese, Colin, Thomas, Mateus, Samuel, Matthews, David, Peter, Sign of the Emperor, Niblets, Calaf, Nigel, and Hankster. Thank you guys for supporting me on Patreon. And thank you all for watching as well. And I hope to catch you all on the next one. And yeah, I hope you're as excited as me to be getting into this Norsca campaign. And you know what? Let's be on the optimistic side, shall we, and go like, hey, it might be Valkyr the Bloody, but probably not for that last bonus of Khorne, but how cool would it be if it was? Anyway, guys, that's me, and yeah, as I said, I'll catch you on the next one.